Hi, welcome to Future Technos, *. This is the Nikon ZF, a powerhouse of a camera packed into a retro film camera body. It's modeled after the iconic Nikon FM2, and honestly, it's kind of beautiful. The camera's been out for about 6 months now, and most of the reviews you'll find on YouTube are just early impressions. But this one's different. I've been shooting with the ZF for a few months now, using it in real-world situations, trying to understand not just what it does, but what it feels like to use. As someone who's used Sony cameras for years, and loved them, I was honestly surprised by how much I've enjoyed the Nikon ZF. It made me rethink a few things. But at the same time, I still find myself asking, who exactly is this camera for? It's not a simple answer. So let's try to figure it out. Alright, let's start with the stuff I really love about this camera. Then I'll get into the things that still bug me. And by the end, hopefully, we'll have a clearer idea of who the ZF is really made for. Just a quick heads up, Nikon loaned me the ZF for a few months, but I don't get to keep it. They didn't pay me, they don't get to review this script. And they won't see the video before you do. Everything you hear is just my honest take. So, let's talk about the build. Because wow, this thing really does feel like a proper film camera. A lot of companies try the retro look, Fuji comes to mind, but those often just look retro without really feeling it. The Nikon ZF feels real. It's got weight. It's got presence. That's thanks to the metal body and the brass dials. You hold it, and it doesn't feel like a toy. It feels like a camera you could keep forever. And it's not just the weight, there's a softness to the shutter release that's really satisfying. You can even add your own soft shutter button if you want. But even without that, the actual shutter sound is beautiful. These days, with mirrorless cameras and electronic shutters, a lot of brands just play a fake shutter sound through a speaker. That's not the case here. The ZF gives you a proper, physical click. Just listen to the ZF. Now compare that to something like the Sony A1. Which one would you rather hear all day? For me, it's not even close. That sound alone brings you into the experience. And while we're on the topic of shooting experience, let's talk about the viewfinder. It's only 3.6 million dots, which is the same as the Z6 II and Z7 II. But when you actually use it, it feels sharp and bright. A lot of cameras around the $2,000 mark tend to cut corners when it comes to the EVF, but not here. Nikon didn't skimp. And for a camera that's trying to balance retro style with modern function, the EVF really matters. It delivers. One of my favorite features, though, has to be the dedicated black and white switch. I know, it's not a groundbreaking thing, you can shoot black and white on almost any camera these days. But there's something about having a physical switch that instantly changes your mindset. Flip it on, and suddenly you're not thinking about color. You're just thinking about light, contrast, tonality, and composition. It's a simple touch, but it makes a big difference. And it's something I wish more cameras had. Now, I've used pretty much every Sony camera since the original A7. And don't get me wrong, I love what Sony does. They're consistent. They're reliable. Their cameras are functional and fast. But there's a certain sterility to them. Like, yes, they get the job done. But they often feel a little soulless. The Nikon ZF is the opposite. It's not just a tool. It's got a personality. It's got soul. And yet, even with all that personality, it's not slow. It doesn't force you to shoot like it's 1985. It actually has the same processor as the Nikon Z8 and Z9, the XT7. For comparison, the Z6 II has dual XT6 processors, which together are still about a fifth as fast as a single XT7. That means the ZF is fast. Startup is quick. Image review is quick. It feels snappy and modern. It looks vintage, but under the hood, it's all 2024. But what really surprised me? The autofocus. Like I said, I'm a Sony shooter. And I think most people would agree that Sony has led the way in autofocus tech. Every time I try another brand, I'm usually left thinking, this is okay, but I still miss Sony. But with the Nikon ZF, that didn't happen. This is the first time I haven't missed Sony's autofocus at all. The 3D tracking is really impressive. You can start with a box to give yourself some manual control, but once the camera locks onto a subject, whether it's a person, a face, or even a car, it tracks it confidently as it moves through the frame. I was taking photos of my buddy Johnny's overlanding rig, and the ZF found it on a winding road and tracked it all the way through the scene, edge to edge. No hesitation. Just smooth, reliable tracking. All of those photos, by the way, were edited using my Filmic Lightroom preset. I'm working on a new preset pack right now, but if you want this one for free, it's linked in the description. Totally free to download. And hey, if you grab it and like what you see, it'd be awesome if you hit subscribe and maybe give the like button a friendly nudge. Now, let's talk about manual focus, because this is another area where the ZF does something kind of brilliant. If you're using a manual lens or have manual focus enabled, and you also have something like eye tracking turned on, the ZF will still show you an autofocus box around the subject's eye. And when you nail focus, it turns green. Simple as that. It's incredibly helpful. Honestly, it's the closest thing I've experienced to a digital rangefinder. And now that I've used it, I'm kind of annoyed that my Leica Q3 doesn't have it. Like, why not? It feels like such an obvious, intuitive feature. Now, there is a catch. For this to work, you need a lens that communicates with the camera. Either a native manual lens with contacts, or an adapter that includes those contacts. If you're using M-mount lenses, something like the TT Artisan 6-bit adapter should do the trick. It's a little detail, but once it works, it feels magical. Okay, here's the part that I didn't expect to say, the ZF is actually a really solid video camera. At this price point, I think it might be the only Nikon camera that can shoot 4K, 10-bit log internally, without spending close to $4,000 on the Z8 or Z9. That's huge. Yeah, there's a crop when you shoot in 4K 60, but honestly, it doesn't bother me. Given the price and what this camera is trying to do, it's a fair trade-off. And just like with stills, the autofocus in video mode is surprisingly great. I actually recorded part of this video with the ZF as a secondary angle, right next to the Sony FX3. It leaned a little magenta, but because you've got 10-bit color, fixing that in post is no big deal. But, and this is a big but, there are some drawbacks. And maybe now's the right time to get into the things I don't love about the ZF. First up, that 10-minute video recording limit. Yeah, that's real. I found that out the hard way when my camera just randomly stopped recording. No warning. It just cut. And if you're planning to use this for longer form video content, that's a problem. Then there's the micro HDMI port. I cannot stress this enough, I hate micro HDMI. It's unreliable. It's fragile. And it's one of those things that just always ends in frustration. If you're building a camera with strong video specs, this port is a huge bottleneck. Even worse, the positioning of the ports is just awkward. The HDMI and mic jack are placed right where the flip screen opens. So if you've got a mic plugged in, or worse, an external monitor, the screen becomes hard to use. Want to see your audio levels? Too bad. The cable is blocking that part of the screen. It's such a simple thing, but it ruins the usability in a real-world setup. And that brings me to the menus. I almost didn't include this part because maybe it's just me, this is the first Nikon I've really used since the DSLR days. But wow, the menu system is not intuitive. If Nikon is trying to win over people who don't already shoot Nikon, they've got to do better here.